Welcome to the Washington State Retirement Planning Podcast. I'm your host, Ethan Meikle, and I'm here to be your trusted guide on your journey to understanding your retirement benefits as a Washington State employee. On this podcast, we break down the complexities of Washington State's retirement system so that you can retire earlier, pay less in taxes, and savor your well-deserved free time. Whether you're a seasoned employee or just getting started out, this podcast is going to be a resource to securing a brighter financial future. Remember, if you find value in this, please consider sharing it with a colleague so we can help get this information out there. Now, today's topic is going to be on how the Plan 3 system works. Specifically, we're talking about how it works for people on the teacher's retirement system, the public employees retirement system, and the school employees retirement system. So your Plan 3 is actually divided into two parts. One part's called your defined benefit plan, and the other is called a defined contribution. So we're going to take some time to talk about how each side works and what you can expect from them in the future. And at the end of this, I'm going to be sure to tell you some of the downsides of this plans. So without further ado, let's dive right in. Plan 3 is a two-part plan. The first one we're going to take a look at is the defined benefit side of things, or the pension side. This side is fully funded by the state of Washington or your employer. The way this works is you're going to get 1% for every single year you work in Washington State. Keep in mind that those years worked do have to be on a full-time basis or enough to give you the one full service credit. If you are working at a 0.6 or maybe just working part-time, your years earned are going to be at that half or that 0.6 level. So it might take you a few extra years to accrue that full year of working. This plan doesn't actually have any kind of cap on the number of years you can work. So if you want to work 35 years, you're going to get paid on all 35 years or 35%. If you only work 20 years, you'll get paid 20%. So it's pretty easy to do the math on this plan. Now that percentage is going to be based on the average of your top 5 years of income that are consecutive. So they do have to be in order, but the state will keep track of that and calculate it for you. Now these years of income do include everything above and beyond your base salary. So if you're someone that coaches or has your national board, all that income will also count towards the total income when they do this pension calculation. Now, because it's the top 5 years, typically they're going to be your last 5 years of working, but that's not always the case. If you earned more in a previous position prior to that, you're going to get paid obviously over those years. And if you take a part-time or just start working less as you get closer to retirement, you're not going to get dinged for doing that. So it's going to be off your top 5 years of income. Pension here is what they call the full benefit formula, or option 1. If you're single when you go to collect, this is going to be the option you take. If you have a spouse when you transition to retirement, you're probably going to want to take a survivorship option. So if something happens to you, your spouse can still receive a portion of your pension for the rest of their life. So anytime we take one of those survivorship benefits, we're going to get a reduced paycheck. So the formula we see here is probably not what you're going to end up getting. So when can you actually start collecting this pension? The full benefit age is going to be age 62 as long as you have 30 years of service. So as long as you have 30 years of working, you can start drawing your benefit in full at age 62. Now, if you don't have 30 years of service, you're going to have to go until age 65. Now, that doesn't mean you have to work to those ages. It just means that that's when you can get the benefit in full. If you want to collect earlier than that, you definitely can. However, if you're someone that has less than 30 years, you probably want to hold off because there's a penalty every year you collect it early. And the penalty for people that have less than 30 years is pretty significant. If you're in that first category where you have your 30 years of service, collecting your benefit 1 or 2 years early is a very small reduction. And oftentimes it actually makes sense to collect it early and take that hit. Actually, many of our clients actually do retire at age 60 with 30 years of service and take their pension at that time as well and take that reduced benefit. Why? Because the pension's so little, the break-even's way in their late 80s, and they much rather either be retired or doing something different at this time because they've already been doing this for 30 years. So that's always an option for you as well, as long as you can financially afford it. One note on this is for people that are hired after May 1st, 2013, you do have to work till 65, regardless of the number of years worked. So if you're one of those new hires, it doesn't matter if you worked 32 years or 35 years, you have to go to 65 to get your full benefit. There is some pending legislature that's seeking to change that. And if that does pass, I'll be sure to let everybody know. Now, this plan is eligible for a cost of living adjustment. So in retirement, you're going to see an increase somewhere between 0 and 3% of your pension. It's just there to help you keep up with inflation. It's not really going to be much of a raise. So you're not really going to see any more money going to the bank. Now, the second part of Plan 3 is your defined contribution. So this is your side of the plan. This is where your personal contributions go into every single month. So the amount of money you're putting in there is somewhere between 5 to 15%, and it really depends on what you decided to contribute when you signed up for Plan 3. If you didn't sign up for anything and you just got defaulted into Plan 3, you're set to just that minimum of 5%. Now, currently, you're not able to change your contribution rate until you change employers. So as long as you're in your current school district, you're stuck at the contribution rate that you picked. And every single month is just going to go into that investment account, and it's going to rise and fall depending on what the markets do. So it's just like a 401k. Now, this one is unique in that it's a non-ERISA. So there's certain unique provisions in here that apply. The first one is this money is absolutely hands off until you separate service. So as long as you're an employee, you can't touch this money for any reason at all, right? So there's no hardships, there's no loans, there's no, I get a certain age, give me some of my money, none of it. As long as you're employed, you can't touch your money. Even if you're 65 years old, you still can't touch your money until you leave. So it's one of the worst rules about this plan that most other retirement plans out there wouldn't let you have access to this money should you need it. Also, all this money goes in there on a pre-tax basis. So a lot of people hype up the pre-tax saving. And what you do is you're going to get a tax deduction. So if you made $50,000 in a year and you save $5,000 to this plan 3, you're only going to be taxed on $45,000 of income, not the full 50, right? So that's one of the benefits is that pre-tax contribution. Now, as far as where does this money go, if you were working before July 22nd, 2011, you're going to be defaulted into the WSIB, which just stands for Washington State Investment Board, or the TAP fund. And the one thing to know is this fund is aggressive. It's heavy in equities and really private investments. So this fund does well when the market does well, and it does poorly when the market does poorly. For people that start after July of 2011, you actually got put into a target date fund, which is a little more appropriate because what a target date fund does, it lines you up to when you're going to be age 65. And as you get closer to that age, it's going to automatically adjust your portfolio to include more bonds and fixed income to reduce your level of risk as you get closer. The WSIB does not do that. It is aggressive, maxed out all the way through, and it doesn't change. It doesn't care how old you are. So a lot of people find themselves in trouble because they never make this change, and they find themselves in the 60s with this really aggressive portfolio, and everything's really at risk. It's just going to go wrong in the market. So if you're like, man, I'm not sure where my money's at, go ahead and make a login into the TRS account and look where your money is. Now, once you log in, if you see your money is with WSIB, you might want to consider changing it. Now, inside of Plan 3, you actually have two ways you can invest. You can stay in the WSIB, which the Washington State Investment Board basically manages the funds for you, or you can shift over to the self-directed side. Now, some people get scared when they hear the word self-directed because they're like, I don't know what to pick. So, fortunately, it's really not that overwhelming. They actually have a lineup of target date funds, and they only have 7 other investment options. So it's not like you're going to get totally overwhelmed by the amount of choices there are. Now, these are all mutual funds. The risk of you picking one of these and it going to zero is quite low because when you purchase one of these funds, you're not just buying one stock, you're actually getting hundreds, if not thousands of different investments in there. So one of these is going to be quite diverse. But it's also important to know that you shouldn't just put your money just in one of these. You want to create a portfolio. Now, for a lot of people, that's overwhelming and they don't want to think about it. We don't have time to research. You guys are busy people, and I get it. So that's why I actually created a Plan 3 and DCP investment advice system. So the system is where you're able to log in, let me know how much risk you want to take, and then every quarter you're going to get personalized advice on how to invest your Plan 3 or DCP accounts. So for example, if you said, hey, I want to be conservative, it's going to say you need to put X percentage in the bond fund. You should put so much percentage into the global fund and so on and so forth. So it's going to basically tell you exactly how to invest it. And then each quarter is going to update you and tell you, hey, you should make these changes. We're going to shift a little bit more from the stock market into bonds or something like that. But every quarter you get updates. Now, if you do have most of your life savings inside this account, paying a small monthly fee to get the peace of mind knowing that you have some kind of professional guidance here on how to invest your money when to make changes should be definitely worth the money. And because it's a fixed cost, I don't care if you have $10,000 or $1 million this thing, the cost is going to be the same for everybody. So try to make this thing accessible, and you currently can't get this type of advice anywhere else. So if you're interested in that kind of thing and need help with your plan of investments, I invite you to check it out. All you need to do is go to our website, WATRSPERS.com. That's WATRSPERS.com. Scroll to the bottom, you're going to see the Get Help section. Under there, the second link down is Plan 3 and DCP investment advice. So once you click on that link, it'll take you right to the page to learn more about it. All right, let's get back to Now, the drawdowns of this plan is you're only going to get 1% a year, whereas people on Plan 2 got that 2% guaranteed. So really the purpose of this defined contribution is to hopefully have enough investments built out that you can draw income off of, and it should match up to what people would have on that Plan 2 system. Oftentimes it's not going to be the case, especially if people control their investments and the markets really don't work out. So one of the reasons why I really don't like this plan is for that reason, is that it's just not as certain as Plan 2. Second is that contribution rate is locked in. So if you're someone, newly hired and able to save, say, 10 or 15%, and you get locked into that, and suddenly a few years later, you find yourself married with kids, it might be a little bit tight to keep making that contribution payment each and every month. Now, the third thing I'm really not a big fan of with this is that all the money in Plan 3 is pre-tax. You currently don't have the option to choose Roth pre-tax contributions. It's all being marked as pre-tax, which on the surface sounds great. I can put money away now. They don't tax me on it. I'll pay it later when I'm making less, therefore I'll be in a smaller tax bracket. Unfortunately, for most state employees that we work with, that often isn't the case. While it's true you might earn less in the future, that doesn't necessarily mean less taxes. And because you guys have a pension on top of your Social Security, many times your income might be less, but not so much less that you're actually dropping tax brackets. So people might make $50,000 less in retirement and still be in the same tax bracket just based on how wide the income bands are for those. So it's a false belief for many people that lower income means lower taxes in the future. So because Plan 3 doesn't give you the option to choose pre-tax or Roth and defaults into this, you could be left with a hefty tax bill in retirement. In fact, that's where most of our clients decide to hire us, is they're trying to figure out, how do I pay the least amount of taxes on this giant pre-tax account I've accumulated over the years while taking income and making sure that my spouse and kids are going to receive some kind of benefit from this. So that's a specialty that we've developed, and we have a process for that is exclusive for Washington State employees. All right, so that's our stopping point for today's episode. I hope you found this discussion insightful. Now, if you want more information, please head over to our website, WATRSPERS.com. That's WATRSPERS.com. If you have any specific questions or topics you'd like us to cover in the future, please feel free to reach out to us. We're here to support you on your retirement journey. Don't forget to share this with a friend or leave us a review so we can reach more Washington State employees to get this education out there. Until next time, remember that your future depends on what you do today. All right, before I sign off, just a real quick legal disclosure that we're required to say as licensed fiduciary advisors. So remember that this is a podcast. It is designed for educational and entertainment purposes only. I don't know you personally, therefore I cannot give you any personal advice. So please don't take anything that we say on the show as being personal, financial, legal, or tax advice. If you want that kind of stuff, make sure you seek out a professional so they can help you with the strategies and investments that are right for you. Also, please remember that despite the name of our show, we are in no way associated with Washington State or the Department of Retirement Systems or any other Washington employer. We're a private-owned firm that specializes in working with Washington State employees, which is why we know so much about this stuff. So remember, we don't work for the state in any way, shape, or form. So please don't confuse us as being an official representative of the state. All right, that's it for the legal stuff. I'll catch you guys all next time.